of Jupiter's moons, and this is something we do in adaptive optics to increase the image resolution, and it's various forms of deconvolution, where you take an image and you take what we call the point spread function, the image of a non-resolved point, and you divide one into the other, and you get an improvement. And this is two different methods, and they basically yield the same results, so it's not black magic. And when you think about this, this is like 1 arc second across here, and we're looking at the surface structure on one of the moons of Jupiter from Earth. Pretty amazing. This just compares, here's that 14-inch telescope image of the trapezium. Here's our old 1.5 meter image. Here's a 3.5 meter image, and here's an 8 meter image. And so when you're using adaptive optics, the size of the telescope matters. If you're not using adaptive optics in terms of resolution, the size of the telescope doesn't matter. Same blurry image, only quicker. Eventually we were able to build a sodium guide star laser. Turns out that there's a very weird effect in nature. The two strongest lines of neodymium YAG, 106.4 and 1319 microns, when mixed in a nonlinear crystal, the sum frequency gives you exactly the frequency you need to excite sodium. It's just a really strange quirk of nature. And so that was the technique used here. This is a very complex device. It involves, here's the sum frequency generator cavity, which is locked to both of these, so it's a doubly resonant cavity, and with very high efficiency it generates sodium light. The unfortunate thing is it's a very complicated device. But now we have simpler ones. There's a company in Germany called Toptica that is now building a fiber laser, a Raman fiber laser, and they have to frequency double it. But this laser is now being used by the astronomers. And it's limited in power because of the saturation effects in fibers, but they're getting about 22 watts or so out of a single laser.
But that should be coming up dramatically shortly.
What's that?
That should be coming up dramatically shortly.
There are some things in the works. The laser that was built in 2004 at the SOR in-house was 50 watts. So, and there's a lot of advancements in deformable mirrors. I'll just show you two. We're now building MEMS devices, micro electromechanical devices, that are small. You can see this one the size of a quarter. This is 4,000 actuators basically, and it's being used in this planet imager that some of us were talking about earlier. So here's the image of a planet. This is, they have a mask that blocks out the light from the star, and you're left with an image of the planet. And what we're doing now is we're putting the slit of a spectrometer on this planet and measuring the constituents in the atmosphere of that planet. And we're looking for carbon dioxide, something that would indicate carbon-based life on another planet. And then we can start beaming radio waves to those guys. The other thing that the astronomers have invented is deformable secondaries. And the way, these are very thin shells of glass. They're a couple of millimeters thick and 1 to 1.5 meters in diameter. And on the back of the glass, they glue all these magnets. And they're suspended under electromagnets in a mandrel. So here are the electromagnets. And the mirror is only supported by the center. This thing is incredibly fragile. I mean, can you imagine something this big that's a millimeter or two thick? It's made out of glass. So they make the glass at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and the mirrors are built in Europe. And
why Arizona? Why?
What's that?
Why they making it?
Why are they making it in
something
Europe?
Special about the mirrors in Tucson?
They just have the capability to do it there. It was really, originally it was their idea. The problem was, you know, this is a real statement about the U.S. technology situation. Nobody in the U.S. would step up to building the rest of it. So they had to go to Europe, a company called Microgate. And that's true for a lot of this technology. The best crystals for doing some frequency cavities are made in China. Lithium triborate. Little old Chinese crystal makers. So today, every large aperture astronomical telescope is using this technology. Here's the CAC. Subaru is an 8-meter telescope. There's even a robotic telescope that uses an ultraviolet laser. Does that mean you have to leave now? Is my time up?
No.
It should be. I'm sure I'm way over. Telling too many stories. This is the new Raman laser that was invented by the Germans on the VLT, the 8-meter telescope in Chile, northern Chile. And Gemini South has a multi-conjugate AO system. We're not going to have time to talk about it. But it's 5 laser guide stars that allow you to, with multiple deformable mirrors, allow you to increase the field of view of the adaptive optics. And it is working. Let me give you a quick tour. This is Gemini North, an 8-meter telescope. This is just a little tiny 4-meter telescope called the Canada, France, Hawaii telescope.
Where's it located?
It's on the big island of Hawaii. So it's on Mauna Kea. This is the location where they're trying to build a 30-meter telescope. I'll show you a diagram of where it's supposed to go. These are 2 of my friends, both named Peter. So this is a Peter squared picture. This is the back of the 8-meter telescope at Gemini. The instruments are actually attached to the back of the telescope. And this is a really tricky thing. I mean, you've got, this stuff weighs tons, right? And the telescope's doing this, and the stuff is bending and flexing, and you're trying to keep it all lined up to very tight tolerances. These are the 2 10-meter Keck telescopes. This is the 8-meter Subaru telescope. These are on Mauna Kea. All of this is Mauna Kea. And I thought I'd show you this picture just for scale. This is a large binocular telescope, which is in southeastern Arizona. And it turns out that the Italians built the frame for it. So this was a picture made in Italy. But these are people down here. So they have 2 8-meter telescopes, 2 8-meter mirrors in here, spun cast at the University of Arizona in the spinning oven, which was the way we made the 3.5-meter telescope, one of the big risks I took when I was coming up in the world. And so now, I'll show you a picture at the end of but they're going to put 7 of these 8-meter telescopes on one mount, the giant Magellan telescope. So here's the rig they used to move one of the mirrors up the mountain from the lab in Tucson. Had to close a bunch of roads. And here's 2 guys doing some sort of an inspection on the mirror. Here it is mounted in the cell of the telescope. And this is what it looks like from the ground.
And this is in where?
This is in southeastern Arizona.
Is it Mount Graham?
Mount Graham. And it's, you know, a few hour drive down there. It's hard to get a tour, but and then this is, there are 4 8-meter telescopes in, at Paranal in Chile, and they operate in conjunction with 4 1.8-meter telescopes that move around. Here's a person here. That form an interferometer. They move the 1.8 meters around to fill in the UV plane when you do interferometry. That's kind of what you need to do. And here's a picture inside. This is the 8-meter mirror here. These are like F1 mirrors. So here's